Let's take a look at the reading exam 2 about descriptive relativism and meta-ethical relativism. Question 1 was, does descriptive relativism imply that there is no objective standard of right and wrong? The answer to that question is no. And that is really a function of what descriptive relativism is. And it's descriptive. It's not really a moral theory at all. All it is an observation that across different cultures you have disagreements about what is right and wrong. So that an act or a practice that would be considered unethical in one culture would be considered ethical in another, or vice versa. All it does is say, well, people in country A believe that doing this is ethical, and people in country B believe that doing this same thing is unethical. So it's not a moral theory at all. So it does not imply really that there is no objective standard of right and wrong, because all it basically says is that there are differences, and there are different ways of accounting for those differences. The kind of things we've been discussing in class. If two people have two entirely different answers to the same math problem, that doesn't mean that they're both right, or that one person is right and the other is also right somehow. I mean, what it means is that at least one of them is wrong. Right? So if you say that 2 plus 2 is 4, and I say that 2 plus 2 is 5, we've got a difference of opinion, but we can account for it by saying that you're right and I'm wrong. And that is one way to account for differences in cultural practices in terms of their ethics. If country A believes that doing such and such is ethically right, and country B that it's wrong, well, country A may be wrong. And that's why there's a difference of opinion. It doesn't imply, when we just note that there are these differences in moral beliefs between different countries, it doesn't imply that there's no objective standard of right and wrong. It could be, one way we can account for the difference is to say that all morality is culturally based, and since cultures are different, moralities are different, and there's no one objective morality. It could be the explanation, but it doesn't imply that there has to be no objective standard of right and wrong. So the answer to that is really no. Number 2, does meta-ethical relativism imply that there is no objective standard of right and wrong? And the answer to that is certainly yes. That is, if meta-ethical relativism is true, then there is no objective standard of right and wrong. Because meta-ethical relativism is a theory of morality. That is, it's not just pointing out things in the world. It's a theory of what morality is, and meta-ethical relativism explicitly states that um, that all moral claims are relative. And here we're sticking to relative to culture. So explicitly part of meta-ethical relativism is the thesis that there is no objective standard of right and wrong, that all moral claims are merely relative to the person or culture that makes them, and that there is no truth of the matter with a capital T that could adjudicate between differences. So meta-ethical relativism is really a theory of morality, whereas descriptive relativism is not. So that's really accounts for the difference. Last question. I believe that killing is wrong, but not when it is killing in war. Does that make me a relativist? Certainly not. That is, just because I believe, well, killing is wrong, but, not when it's killing in war, does that make me a relativist? No, because it relativism is saying that all moral claims are relative to the person or the person's culture. That is true only relative to those things. But that's not implied by what I said there. If I believe that killing is wrong, but not when it's killing in war, what I'm saying is that there are exceptions to the general principle that killing is wrong. It doesn't mean that those exceptions are completely relative. That is, if when I say that killing in war is not wrong, I've said that that's true for everyone. All I've said is that there's an exception to the general rule or general principle or general precept that killing is wrong. And yeah, so it doesn't make you a relativist. It makes you someone who believes that, okay, we've got maybe certain principles. Um, Assaulting or hitting somebody is wrong. It's just wrong. But if you're hitting them to try to keep them from doing something terrible to somebody, it's not wrong. But that's not to be a relativist. That's just to say that moral rules have exceptions. But the implication is that those exceptions are the same for everybody, right? Even if the other person doesn't recognize them. So it doesn't make you a relativist. Just to say that there are exceptions to moral principles.